PR Connections Radio presents the Love of Business podcast. The Love of Business, nurturing the entrepreneurial spirit.
Awesome. Welcome, everybody, to the Love of Business podcast. I'm your co-host, Davin and Edgar. Joined with me today is our other co-host, Edgar Rodriguez, and our guest, Bentley. So today is going to be a little bit a little bit different since Bentley is getting brand new into business. So we're going to be kind of talking about his start of his journey as an entrepreneur. But I do want everybody to just briefly introduce themselves. So we'll start with Bentley. We'll go to Edgar, and then I'll go ahead and introduce myself last a little bit so you guys all know what we do. And then we'll get right into the questions that Edgar has here today. So Bentley, go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience and let us know a little bit about you.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Bentley Nicholas. I'm born and raised on the Pacific island of Guam. I grew up on the farm and raised arbuckle or carabao to papayas, bananas, and that's really where I first had my interest and introduction to business. It was through my father. I was around, growing up seeing him plant and grow things, and it was around I was 10 years old, 12 years old that I was a part of planting a whole plantation of banana trees. And it was from that initial process, like setting up the land, then planting the bananas, and then 18 months later, harvesting the bananas, selling it at the market, seeing that, before my eyes, where that was my first introduction to business, and it's just never really left me since. So that's a bit of my background and interest in business in general for now.
Awesome. Cool stuff. Edgar.
So, as Davin mentioned, my name is Edgar Rodriguez, and I am also one of the co-hosts, and I am also the founder of Master the Network, and we do focus on business coaching. Bentley, thank you for taking the time to join us, and we're excited to learn more about you.
Awesome. Yep. Thank you, Edgar. So I'm Davin Sudvik. I'm a real estate broker. So what I do is I help people in the real estate transactions, but I also help agents succeed. And so there's kind of like two main parts of my business, the recruitment side of the talent, and then the actual production side and what we do, which is the sales. So with that being said, we all kind of know each other. Thank you, Bentley, for coming onto our podcast. It's really cool to see entrepreneurs at all different stages of their business growth. And so, Edgar, what's your first question for them?
So you mentioned you're just getting into business, Bentley. Talk to us a little bit about the passion behind that, right? Like what led you into, hey, this is something I want to explore. And I know you mentioned in the intro earlier about, it being in family, but, specifically because not everybody's born with this type of, gene that it takes, right, for us to get into it and dive in.
Thank you for the question. And again, coming from my dad's experience, I've always just enjoyed playing games and sports in general. And so one of the games that we would play or he introduced me to is chess. And chess gives you the ability and you want to kind of predict and forecast into the future what happens. So you kind of take that to its extremes. And, when we, we're born, we eventually die. So what is left over, what you have to, what you've done and what you give back and what you leave. And so far from what I can tell is that business is one of the lasting legacies or the things that continue, even though the initial founder or people, they pass away, they're able to hand that on to the next generation and they continue to build it out and provide more services. So there's this really cool thing where I can do something today and it can continue to ripple effect and grow into the future. I find very fascinating, very interesting, and worthwhile versus other things that don't necessarily last. Yeah.
What's the driving factor for you to want to do this, right? You talked about wanting to create a legacy and knowing that this is something that can't last a long time. So, I mean, the simple question is, what's your why?
I would say a big one is my children, my kids. I think of them and how I can care for them. And again, like going back to, why am I doing all this? Like you said, why do you go to work? Why try? What's the purpose of it all? And it's eventually, a big part is, my responsibility for them and what I want to leave for them. And at the same time, just my values, my Christian values, where I want to, just serve others and, hopefully eventually make it into heaven. I mean, those are like really at the core of the base of my why. And what drives me a lot is just that calling, right, to to be better and to try and help and give.
Yeah, and I mean that's a great answer, man. Is sometimes we got to look deeper beyond our why, right? I know a lot of us, because you and I both have kids, and that was one of my factors, right? That I want to show my daughters there is another way to become successful, right? Is it traditionally going to college, working for somebody or doing things like this? So in this journey that we're all on, right? And we all have different seasons in business in our lives that we all go through, right? The peaks, the valleys. But the commonality is that there's something driving us, right? And I think you hit the nail on the head, is that yes, we do this for our kids, but it's something at a greater calling that's pushing us beyond what our minds can normally think, right? And this is something that I think we all have that commonality, like the of service mentality. So I think it's that commonality that we have, that we want to make our community better, that has a ripple effect, right, towards what we are trying to create for a better future for not just our kids, but future generations to come.
Yeah. No, thank you, Edgar. Yeah, and because what you're talking about is legacy, right? At the end of the day, right? Well, like, what do you leave behind? And I think so many people, we think, okay, well, think about my legacy, when I'm 60, 70, 80 years old, when I'm in my retirement years. And it's like, no, you start building your legacy, right, at 18, pretty much, right? That's when you can really decide for yourself what you want to be in this world, right? You have the freedom, you have no excuses, right? And yeah, business is a great way to do that. And, oftentimes leaders, we're not judged by what happens when we're there, but what happens when we're not. So no, you're on a super cool journey. We're going to be excited to see you through it here.
And now on this journey, Bentley, and what do you envision for the future of the business, and what type of business is it you're looking to get into?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's so many interesting business, but the area in which has captured my interest is the financial services industry and that sector. And it's, again, mainly due that we go to work, we generate all this income and revenue, and then what do we do with it? And I I came into this issue and not necessarily understanding that money is like a technology that was created and it has its own behaviors and attributes. I never thought of it like that, growing up. No one really ever taught me that it behaves a certain way and has certain functions. And I think it's a big education that's missing in, say, our country or my peers. And I really want to provide out that service to others and help them understand.
It's interesting, and we appreciate the openness, because the financial realm is not an easy realm, right? Like, that business is a what did I call it? Because I come from that world, right? Like, I have a wealth management background, but it was literally a eat what you kill type of industry, and it doesn't have to be that way, because I think between the financial management industry or financial services industry and the real estate agent industry, they have their commonalities, right? And where they think it's, oh, this is my client, I'm gonna take care of them. I saw them first. But if you really, really do educate your clients and teach them the things that they don't know. And the way we do that is by asking the right questions, right? Pushing them in figuring out what is it that they're truly wanting, right?
Yeah.
And that goes really deep, because that is their financial future, right? Same thing with real estate. That is an investment for them. But it's by asking those questions, right? And that's an exciting, I mean, I'm excited for you. And I can go into this extremely deep just because I come from that background, but I'll let Davin add in his 2 cents.
Oh yeah. I mean, so yeah, financial services, real estate, they truly are somewhat connected in a way. But yeah, very similar business models. And like Edgar said, right, it's this eat what you kill mentality, oftentimes that most people have. And very few people have the education mentality. So if you just go into it with, I'm going to educate as many people. I tell Edgar or other people that I work with all the time, I'm like, my goal in my career is like, okay, hopefully I generate about 1,000 deals, maybe 2,000 deals, or however many thousands of deals. And if I only capture half of those, right, I'll make my career happen, right? I can't, close 1,000 transactions all by myself. I'm going to need a whole team to do that. That requires actually other competition, other agents on my side in order to be able to do that. So if you're going to lose the business, lose it to somebody you're on a teammate with, right? But generate so much more than what you can have, and you'll do that through education. So really excited. Hopefully you take that route too, and you kind of see what you can do in people's lives with it.
Now getting into this industry, because it's not idea to income, right? Most of us, when we come up with a business or we have this really good idea, we have to go from that idea to income phase. For you, it's already laid out for you, right? There's a blue map or there's a roadmap already, a blueprint, and the steps you need to follow. But can you talk a little bit about what caused, or how did that come about, of like, hey, this is it. This is what caught my interest, and this is how I'm going to do it.
Right. Yeah, as I was saying a bit, I just love playing games, video games, chess, any kind of competition-based
strategy.
Yeah, strategy. Right. And going back to sports, and my friends introduced me, it's this thing called fantasy football, where we watch the American NFL football games, and then based on how the players perform, you get certain points, and create like a little league here, and it goes through the season, and eventually whoever makes the most points or competes on that basis will win. So I saw that that's only for a certain season, and the probability of winning is very low, right? It's very hard to win in that kind of game, and I'm really one that does not like losing. So I got introduced to the stock market, again through miseducation. It's again like from my family, but it was like touted that it's worse than gambling. It's worse than the casino. Do not go into stocks, right? Like that was like the first thing I've ever heard about it. But then, just exploring and being curious, I eventually settled into, wow, this is a beautiful, game that's all year long, that, you can continue to do and make a career for yourself into however old you want to be. And that it rewards patience, it rewards, again, analysis and studying.
Yeah.
And has a growth mindset where, and like you said, back to it's, eat what you kill, but it's more where there's a lot more shareability. So it's more, kill and share with others, right? That we can all kind of win depending on our strategies and how we go about it. At least that's the way I've seen it so far. So
yeah,
answers that question.
Yeah. No, the stock market's an interesting place because people do call it gambling. And if you look at it, though, it's the only place where you can gamble and most people win. Like most people win money in the stock market, even with no strategy, even with bad strategy, right? And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that everybody's gonna win with it, but it's like you can then just educate. If the odds are already in your favor, all you have to do is then educate yourself and be on the side of those favorable odds, right? So yeah, no, I love what you're doing there and how you think about it, because it's definitely not something to fear. So
Yeah, and it isn't that interesting, Bentley, because you said something that it was one of those things that people said, don't do it. It's worse than gambling, right? And I think that's the misconception, because the stock market is literally a long-term game, right? It rewards those that are patient. You're going to have peaks, valleys, but if you know and you base it around what your goals are, right? What is it when you're trying to get to the end zone, right? If we look at the analogy of sports, is you start on the 1 yard line, you got to get to the other side. It's a long-term strategy game, and it's knowing that there's going to be obstacles, bumps on the roads that you have to learn to take, right? But it's true diversity is what else are you doing? Because you can't put all your eggs in one basket. And that's something I used to tell my clients in building the wealth management firm, right? Was that you have to learn to have different buckets. And that's how they understood. Look, if it's real estate, that's one side of the portfolio. Stock market, that's another side of the portfolio. There's other tax advantage strategies that you can utilize that give you leverage, right? So it's all about the diversification. And what does that truly mean? Because a lot of people throw that term out there. So I'm curious to know how you interpret diversity or diversify.
Diversification, right? Yes, very good question. Wow. I would say that I more so have a diversification of just thoughts and thinking, but when it comes to like a portfolio and an approach, it's like you said, to each their own, and what it's based on what goal they're trying to achieve, right? And set, right? Like, hey, like, are they just trying to get whatever to the 10-yard line or 50-yard line? Like, how many touchdowns do they want? And so you can kind of lay out, like you said, the path to achieve that. But for diversification, there's a variety of, and again, it's not investment advice or,
right.
I'm not a financial advisor or anything like that, just informational purposes. But I would say there's geopolitical, like geography-based diversification.
Right.
And again, like different people, like you have yourself, and then you have your advisor, you have your other people get, test and see what their thoughts are and, what they're signaling. And again, a big one is like the S&P 500, and indexing is another, beautiful form of diversification. So there's a lot of good, financial, products out there just that offer those things. So
yeah, and I like that answer, man, because you hit the nail on the head. And to make sure the viewers understand is not just the diversification in different products or portfolios, but the people, right? If you get those subject matter experts that are going to give you the advice that you actually need and know, like, and trust them, right? They have to be reputable. And we're talking about, right, a really good CPA, a really good accountant. We're talking about a good financial advisor. These are the people, right? And if you're in business, do you have somebody who's giving you like, hey, what is the business currently worth, and what is it going to be worth when you want to sell it, and what's that roadmap look like, right? Getting like Davin, right, another person who's really good in your corner to tell you about your investment properties. Are you at a loss? Are you running at a plus, right? And those are things that most people don't really understand. Is, are we in the red? Are we in the black? And I know Davin can touch more about that, but like just in business alone, right? In what we do is we educate our clients on how to increase more profit, and it's through that business re-education. Same thing when it comes to diversification, right? It's the people you have in your corner. They're going to push you and give you the information that you need, and that can back it up with facts, not just false information.
Yeah. No, Edgar, and you hit it right on the head. So like even in real estate, so like for example, being in the red or in the black, like you could be in the red in what you send to the IRS, but then you actually look at your balance sheet, not the cash, not the statement of cash flows, which is what every investor wants to look at, but the actual balance sheet, and you go, well, the balance sheet got bigger. right? Right. There's more equity, more assets, less liabilities. Okay, well, that's technically a profit. But then the other thing too is the people, right? Like, every investment, no matter what, but real estate specifically, like you can have a great house, but if it's in an area where you have no network, no connections, right, and you don't know who's going to rent your house out, right? Like, yeah, you can list it to any random stranger, but that's not a good business model, right? So some people will be like, oh, I hear Texas is the best place to invest in real estate. I'm like, do you know anybody who lives in Texas? Right. So like what you said with diversification of people, like who in your corner not only helps in like real estate, but it'll help you in the stock market. It'll help you with your personal choices. So yeah, no, I love what you said when you said about people, because like every investment requires that there's a buyer, right, and a product, right, at the end of the day. So yeah, it's all about the people.
So I know we got time for one last question as we get ready to wrap up, because we got about 5 minutes left. But for you, Bentley, how do you stay motivated, focus on the big goal, right?
Oh, sure. Something that encourages me is just, you Edgar and Davin, you guys, you have created your business. So there's success stories where it has happened, is happening, and eventually to get there. And it's just looking to the people you look up to and those that have done it, and hopefully you can join them. So yeah, I just, again, having, like you said, the diversification of people, a good team, and having good support. And again, just look at your kids, right? It's a great reminder every day, or just enjoying life and enjoying the process, really.
Mm-hmm.
Another good line thread is, yeah, the goal, there's the goal, but then possibly more importantly is, like, just the journey, right? The progress, the hunt, right? It's not really the kill, it's the hunt, right? So.
Yeah, that's a great answer, man. Is embrace the journey and surround yourself with really, like-minded people, right? If depending on the books you read and the people you associate with, will depend where you'll be in the next 5 years, right? So it's great answer. Appreciate you being on this episode of the Business Podcast. I'll let Davin get us wrapped up, and then we'll wrap up today's show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Edgar. So normally, Bentley, what we do is we have everybody kind of talk about what they got out of the podcast, what they got out of the conversation. But right before we jump into that, sometimes I do this part at the very end, but I'm trying to get better about doing it right before we start the wrap up. Is Bentley, how can people get in contact with you to help you along your journey in business, or to just be a part of what you're doing in general? Or do you have social media tags that you like to promote, or do you want people to just call you on the phone? What's the best for you?
Well, yeah, thank you. I recently launched a website. It's called financialsquire.com. So
okay.
Just put my general thoughts about life and investing, and just weekly punch it out so you can check it out there. Hopefully subscribe if you like it. Support me.
Yeah.
And of course,
I love that.
Yeah.
Financial Squire. Oh, that has like such a student mentality to it. So
thank you. And,
all right, good deal.
Yeah, that would be probably a place to go. And again, I should have my social media connected through there. So yeah, thank you guys for the.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Bentley. So just briefly, give us about like 45 seconds to a minute. What did you get out of this podcast? What were some things that you liked talking about, or some things you wanted to talk about more? And then maybe we'll tease a next episode with you on at a later date in the future here. So yeah, just give it a minute here, and we'll hear from you. Then we'll hear from Edgar, and I'll close us out.
Yes, I had and again, as a Squire and a student more so, I had to add some questions, like what's your favorite business model, favorite business, just recommendations for business. I'm definitely want to learn more from you too. And those are just some questions I had. So
yeah. Cool stuff.
Yeah. I'm going to say for me, what I got out of the podcast is how genuine you are. and I could feel it, right, is that you really want to make a difference, you want to make an impact, and that's massive. And I think that's what's going to carry weight in your business journey, is that people will see you for your authenticity, and that's what it's going to take, for people to want to do business with you.
Yeah. Amen. So just seconding Edgar on that one, the student mentality is one of those things that I feel like is so underestimated in the beginning of your journey, and then it carries, like Edgar said, so much weight on the odds or those factors that increase your success. Like that is a really, really big percentage of your success. So I'm super excited to see where you're going with this. And then I love the feedback about you actually asking us some questions, because I think oftentimes Edgar and I come from the frame of mind of extracting information out of our guests, which has been the primary goal of our podcast. But yeah, maybe having a little opportunity for our guests to extract some information from us too could also be helpful. And I could see that. So yeah, maybe when we invite you on, you have a list of questions and you ask us some stuff, we'd be happy to answer. So with that being said, thank you everybody for watching the Love of Business podcast, and we'll see you guys next time.